so okay, that's fine.
All right, so I guess it's 4 o'clock right now, and welcome everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Yanni Lee. I'm the event manager of the Hong Kong Association. I will also be the host for today's webinar of industry outlook under the COVID-19. So as we all know, San Francisco is a very well-known travel destination and also global business hub. And the COVID-19 pandemic has hit the travel industry really hard. So today we are going to talk about how travel industry responds to the COVID-19. For instance, we're going to talk about the latest update from the hotel and the aviation industry. For example, are there any new policies, new protocols, or any new initiative in order to contain the pandemic? And also something very, very important to us, what is the future of travel? So hopefully we'll be able to share with you some useful tips on your upcoming travels. So for today's webinar, it's our honor to have two very knowledgeable and highly reputable speakers from the hotel and aviation industry, which we have Mr. Kevin Carroll and Melinda Franklin. I'm going to share a brief introduction of our speakers real quick here. So Kevin is the executive director and also the CEO of the Hotel Council of San Francisco. The Hotel Council was first established in 1987 as a nonprofit organization to represent all segments of the hotel industry and serve as the key community person between the Hotel Council and the city, state, and the national government agency, as well as the community and travel industry organizations. Is also a media spokesperson for the San Francisco hotel industry. He is also the chair of the Workforce Investment Board San Francisco, and he's also the president, as we just mentioned, of the Hotel Council San Francisco, the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, and the Community Alliance for Jobs and Housing. And for Melinda is one of the Hong Kong Association Board of Directors. I believe some of the audience may have already met Melinda before in our past in-person events. So Melinda is a thought leader and a legislative strategist. She has cultivated a global network of high-level corporate, government, and civic leaders, which enables her to execute on the business initiatives. And she has also developed a very strong expertise in the crisis management, public policy, and international affairs. So Melinda also served the board in various organizations, as I just mentioned, the Hong Kong Association, and also as she's also the chairwoman of the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, and also she also served the board, same as Kevin, in the Hotel Council San Francisco. So she has received local and national recognition for her work and is often a featured speaker at major business forums. So we are very happy, we're very honored to have Kevin and Melinda to join our conversation today. But besides our speakers, we also have a familiar face here. There she is, Ms. Corey Lam. So Corey is the Hong Kong Association Northern California Board of Director, and then she's also the VP as the branch manager in the HSBC Bank USA. She will be helping us to act as the moderator for today's webinar. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. And before we start our discussion, just a few things I would like to remind our audience. If you would like to ask questions to our panelists, please feel free to do it via the chat room, or you can use the Q&A box, which is located on your toolbar. After all, I'm urged to learn more about today's topic. How is the future travel trends going to affect me as a domestic or an international traveler? So Corey, may you please take it away from me? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Yanni. So hi, Kevin and Melinda. So I'm so happy to have you today. Because today's topic, I'm very excited because it's about travel. Because when I ask people what they miss the most doing or after the shelter in place, the first thing they say that I miss traveling. So so this is a really good topic to talk about. So Melinda and Kevin, would you able to give us an overview how the airline industry and hotel industry facing the COVID-19 pandemic, in this moment?
Sure. Thank you so much, Corey and Yanni, and I'm happy to go first because I think that's the flow between flying and then staying at the hotel if you're
I
heading to
agree.
San Francisco. So thank you again. Honored to be here. I am today representing not just United Airlines, but also the domestic air carriers as part of the Airlines for America, California, Northern California lead, particularly today. Uh, if you've gone to San Francisco SFO or any airport for that matter, they're deserted. People people are not flying. People are gradually coming back, and I note very gradually. If you look at some of the charts, I'm going to be sending some slides over after this so you can look at the data. But we were literally down in March by about 100% in travel. People said, "Forget it. We're canceling our trips. It's not safe. We don't want to travel." So we've been gradually pulling our way back. We have an 80% back from 100%, meaning zero, 100% people not traveling. Now it's about 80% of people not traveling by the end of June 7th. So it was about 90% down in international travel, 70% in domestic travel. So we're clawing our way back, and we have seen COVID-19 has forced US passenger airlines to idle nearly half the fleet. So you are seeing in parking lots in the desert, lots and lots of planes from all different carriers. And indeed, our credit ratings have all gone down. We've all really truly been suffering through this. And it's all a matter of keeping us all safe through COVID, and how do we project to the public and really genuinely give the information and data to the public to let them know it is safe to travel, that it's okay to travel. And I just put my son on a plane a few days ago, and so I personally know, living this every single day, that I believe it's safe to travel. He went to New York, and it was one of those things where you get the test before, you make sure that the passengers are all following the rules, and then you have that assurance. And I know Kevin, my friend, has traveled a couple of times to the East Coast as well recently. So let me give you a quick thumbnail sketch of what generally is happening within the industry. And again, I can use a couple examples of United specifically, but just in general, what we're doing as an industry. So before you even contemplate traveling, we have you fill out a health screening form online that basically asks some key questions about your general state of health and how you're doing, to just give yourself the assurance that, yeah, I think I can travel. When you arrive to the airport, you're then given, it's all touchless. It's a touchless experience by using the kiosk with your phone to be able to check in your bags as well if you have those. And then, of course, at the airport, you're using your masks as well as social distancing. So that's in partnership with all the airports that we're working together with them as we go through that. Once you get through security and to your gate, again, enforcing the social distancing as well as the mask wearing. And what's happened to the airplane during that time while you've been going through your process, all of the airplanes are being very, very heavily cleaned. For United, we partnered with Cleveland Clinic and Clorox to do extensive cleaning on the plane. We have these electrostatic guns that are shooting and getting everything extra clean. We do a lot of manual cleaning as well, with the bathrooms, with the doors, with the tray tables. Everything is meticulously cleaned, and then so to get you ready to get onto the plane. Then once boarding starts, most of the airplanes now are being boarded from the back. So that means we want to basically put as few people walking by each other as possible. So that's happening in the boarding process, and it's a little different than before. You used to do it by elite and different ways of boarding, but now We will get first class passengers in, but then after that, it's boarding back first, working your way up to the front. Then once you're flying and in the air, this has been a really intense question for people. What about the air? The air is screened, is going from the ceiling to the floor. So this is a constant movement of air, and I've consulted with pilots on that and how that works. It's these HEPA filters that are being able to move the air as well as pick up 99.97% of air particles that are in the air. So your air is actually cleaner on the airplane than many other places, and sitting in an office in a conference room with a bunch of people where the air is not necessarily circulating. The air is constantly circulating, and it's as safe as a hospital. So that gives you some further assurance. Then with food service, minimal, food service minimal, drink service minimal. We want to protect our crews as much as our passengers. Crews have been temperature screened before each flight as well. So someone's asked me, should we just bring our own food? And frankly, the answer is yes, because honestly, you're not going to get a lot of food on aircraft right now. Once you deboard, same thing, keeping the social distance. We really manage that process. And in some places you may get extra, like Hawaii, and I can talk about that later on if there's questions about Hawaii, but there's an extensive temperature screening process in Hawaii. There's other rules and regulations in different states and countries that you fly in. So what I would recommend is that before you travel, you really look on the airline's website, and they will have all the different rules and regulations to what country or state you're flying in, because they're all different. And that's actually been somewhat of a problem, because it's hard to keep track of, but all of us are doing a good job of doing that. And then the last thing I'll mention before I turn it over to Kevin is face masks. That's been a big issue. Face masks are mandatory both for crews and customers on the plane. So if we're going to be reminding you a lot to wear your face masks, and there's only a small percentage of people who decide not to wear a face mask, we will give multiple warnings. And our policy is such that if you've been giving these multiple warnings, you'll be written up, so to speak, on the computer, and basically be banned from traveling on United. That's our policy through the pandemic, because that to us is non-negotiable, and that's about good health. And one other thing I failed to mention is just about the separation on the seats as well. Our policy, and again, this varies for middle seats, is that if our planes are fuller than 70%, we will contact you by phone and by email and say, hey, this plane is up to this amount of travelers on it. Would you like us free of charge to move you to a different plane that's not as full? Because generally speaking, sadly, our planes are generally 30 to 50% full right now. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions when that time comes. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to Corey. Thank you, Corey.
Yeah, thank you. So I just find out that in San Francisco we have 34,000 hotel room to offer to all the visitor, because every year we have around 24.6 million visitor to San Francisco. So I know this pandemic definitely is hurt our economic, and so I want to ask Kevin, like, what is for the most challenge for the hotel, and what's the hotel council give the resource to the each hotel for guideline, and also for the general public as well, and how you guys to solve the issue that we have during this pandemic? You're on mute.
Trying to be so good here. Thank you, Melinda, my friend. Thank you, Corey. I'm honored to be speaking with this group, and especially honored to be with my colleague and friend, Melinda Yee Franklin. Melinda and I have traveled all over the world together for different missions and different work. And it's so fun to be on a call with someone I know. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you at the Hong Kong Association. Melinda's also on our board of directors, which Corey mentioned as well. And also regarding airlines, I did fly last weekend and a half ago, to New York on United, coincidentally, and everything Melinda said was true, and I felt very safe. The middle seats were blocked, the crew, everybody was in masks, all the boarding, it was very clear that safety and cleanliness were an absolute must. And I had a lot of friends asking me what it was like, the experience, and it was what I expected and even more, because it was definitely from a point of view of cleanliness and cleaning. Regarding the hotels, Melinda, you get them here to San Francisco, we'll put them up in our hotels. And I think what we're finding mostly here is in San Francisco, after the shelter in place and after the declaration of emergency, virtually all of our visitors stopped. And so we went from really an occupancy rate in normally at this time of year would be 85, 90%. And we're now down in the single digits. People that are staying in hotels, if they're an essential worker or a first responder, hotels, we do have a few hotels open. So if you look at our industry, we have a handful of hotels that are open. They are allowed to be open if they're serving first responders, people that are looking to, that are traveling for essential business. So they're open. And then we have some hotels that have contracted with the city of San Francisco, and I can talk more about that as well. And they've contracted either for first responders or vulnerable populations of people to stay. You're probably reading a lot about that, so if we get questions, I can give you more background on that as well. I think the thing to remember is we have 25,000 employees. And so like airlines or like any industry that's basically coming to a shutdown, those employees aren't working. And our goal is to make sure that we can get open quickly and safely and have people come back to work. And for us and how we look forward, the issue is there's several things that are going to happen. One, we're going to have guidelines from the city on our cleanliness protocols. And we have spent months working on those. We have a whole task force that was started. We have information from the American Hotel and Lodging. We have information from California Hotel and Lodging, the Center of Disease Control. All of those have all been put together in a document that we've put forward to the city of San Francisco. So as they start to release, you've heard about the different phases that they're releasing. When they start to release, our hotels are prepared. And one of the things, and if you think about yourself as a traveler, when you go to a hotel, cleanliness is probably the most important thing you're concerned about. And when you hear people talk about hotels and the work that they're doing, they'll often mention, oh, this was great, or this wasn't. It's really related to being clean. So hotels already have standards in place. Now they have standards most likely through their own brands, also within city and state. We're waiting for San Francisco as we get ready to open for tourism, what those standards would look like for us as well. And that's something that would be critical. So from a reopening point of view, we have to have those standards in place. We feel we do. We absolutely have the focus on it. I can talk more about what that looks like when you're in a hotel. But we also have to make sure that our guests know it and that we're marketing the fact that we have very clean hotels and hotel rooms. And that's something that's critical, because Melinda mentioned people deciding not to travel. If they're predisposed not to travel, or they're not going to stay in a hotel, we have to do everything we can to convince them that we're ready for you and we want you to stay in our hotels. And so that's the work that we've been doing and helping to get that word out as well as part of it. So we're going to have to make sure that we have those clean standards, which we do. We're going to have to make sure people know about them. We're going to have to make sure our city is clean. And that's something that going into this pandemic, San Francisco had a reputation for not being clean on our streets. And that's something that was definitely impacting our industry. It was impacting our business. And we had people making decisions not to come to our city, or conferences not to come to our city because of the cleanliness. So the city has to address that. That's one of our biggest things that we've been working on for years. And that would have to make sure that we have that together. And then we have to be able to get tourism and visitors back. Our convention business is massive for our hotels. If you think of our travel industry in San Francisco and the people that stay in our hotels, about a third of them in a normal year would be from conferences. A third would be what we call transient business travelers. So people traveling for their companies and traveling for business that's not associated with the conference. And then we would have people that are staying as tourists and visitors to our city. So we have a nice mix. All of that's been kind of thrown up now in a way because of the fact that conferences have pretty much stopped for the balance of the year incoming. And the questions are, when will they start coming back? And then business travelers, so we've kind of been hit on all fronts. Business travelers have now been stopped because most companies are switching to Zoom calls. I think we're all becoming experts, except for I still haven't made sure that I unmute myself every time I talk. But that's something that's going on. And then visitors, right now in California, the governor has allowed, in about 51 counties, are allowed to have visitors in hotels for tourism reasons. San Francisco is not one of those cities yet, and that's something our industry has been pushing for and working on. But as you can imagine, you've been hearing in the news, some counties that opened early might be having more issues with COVID infection rates going up. And even in San Francisco, we were originally we are part of phase 3. And for hotels now for tourism, the current schedule would be that we would be open mid-August for tourism. We want it earlier. Of course, everybody wants to get things earlier, but if and that would have to be reliant on people traveling and coming into the city. You've already seen where some of the phase 2 businesses that were scheduled to open this week have been paused. And that's something that's causing concern for everybody, because if those phases are getting paused that were moved up, what does that mean for the phases behind it? And hotels are currently, as I mentioned, in phase 3. So what we've done, and I can talk more about this when we get questions as well, is when you travel and you come into a hotel, you're going to have a different experience than you had before. Similar to what you're finding now everywhere you go, whether it's a coffee shop, a restaurant, an airline, wherever it is, the world is different, and hotels are going to be different as well. The fact that Melinda mentioned masks, everybody will be wearing masks when you come into a hotel. And then the social distancing protocols, the cleaning protocols, even room service protocols, all of those things are going to be changed, all based on making sure that our guests and our employees are safe and in a safe environment as well. For us, I mentioned the job impact is massive, but for the city, our #1 industry is tourism. And so when we have an industry like tourism that's pretty much shut off, the tax revenue to the city, the jobs for our employees, all of those are being severely impacted. And so for us as an industry, we need to get back to work. We have to do it safely, and we have to make sure that we're ready, which we believe we are, to be able to welcome people back and be able to have guests come into our hotels as well as part of it. And we're currently, you've probably been seeing on some of the media on it, we had our Board of Supervisors legislating cleaning standards that they were putting through or are putting through. And that's something that we felt like we had the standards, the City Health Department had the standards. It wasn't something necessarily that the Board of Supervisors needed to legislate, but they are. And that's something our organization's been working on as well. Our council is made up of both hotels and our allied members like United Airlines and Melinda, and so is our board of directors. So our organization reflects hotels from 25 rooms all the way up to 2,000 rooms. Many of you may not know our largest hotel in San Francisco, largest hotel in the Western United States that's not a casino is right here in San Francisco, the Hilton Union Square. So I think I'll stop there. I know there's going to be a lot of questions, or there will be questions, and I'll be happy to answer any of them. And thank you all.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for sharing. So, I actually, for me personally, I really wonder after the pandemic, how is the travel look like? So maybe should we get something, health certificate ready just because I need to get the COVID-19 test 3 days before I travel? And also when I stay in the hotel, what kind of thing that I need to bring, just prepare, Maybe is this something that you guys can give us some insight?
Yeah, I'll start on I'll give an example. Hawaii and Alaska, two different states that have different protocols. Hawaii will require you to have a temperature check as soon as you get off the plane. So if you have a temperature, you will be immediately asked to go to 14-day quarantine, or return to where you came from, which we've been going back and forth on, because that means that this person would therefore be put back on a plane and go back and could endanger others. But there is a 14-day quarantine there. In Alaska, what they've chosen to do is to have a test, and that it's what you just said, Corey. 72 hours before your departure, you need to have a test, and the test needs to be negative, and you need to prove that, along with an extensive form that you fill out. And or you get off the plane, and they have their public health officials there ready to take a test as well. They will not, they don't have immediate results, unfortunately, on the test. And so they are then charged, the public health officials, with tracking someone down if they get the test results in 24, 48 hours, and then they do not, if they test positive, they have to go find the person, which adds a whole nother layer. But bottom line, if you have that test and you can document within 72 hours that you're safe, you're not subject to the quarantine. So I think everybody's trying to figure out what's best for their state, how they're going to do that, because, you know, some states are just too cumbersome to even try to do that. But those two states are a good example where they're actually trying it, and they are keeping their numbers down. Hawaii and Alaska, despite it all, have some of the smallest numbers in terms of COVID cases in the country. And then countries will have different protocol as well. And that's where, you know, again, we'll be posting everything up to the minute so that you know what the rules and standards are for each place you're going to be traveling to.
And I think from a hotel point of view, when you get to the hotel, we're waiting for the final guidelines from the city, but as far as a temperature check, employees, we already know, and we're anticipating the employee part of it would be having temperature checks. We don't know the answer yet on the guest side of it and what would happen there. San Francisco has passed laws that if someone is in your hotel and they either are perceived to be COVID positive or they identify themselves as maybe being that you cannot evict them out of the hotel. So the protocols that go along with that and what does that mean is something that's obviously the hotels are looking at what that would mean as part of it as well. I think for us, the traveling part of it and the rules, I think for guests that are traveling is understanding the rules of where you're going and understanding what the city's rules are as well. So like Melinda mentioned, every state's different, every country's probably different, and now cities are different. So you can stay in a hotel in Napa, but you can't stay in a hotel in San Francisco. And when you have such close proximity with people traveling between there, that's going to be an issue. And I think one of the things we know our recovery here locally will be, unfortunately, plug your ears, Melinda, but it's probably going to be more of a drive visitor first. And those are going to be people that are coming into the city. And right now, when you look at a competitive nature of the state, if you have the majority of counties that are open and counties that aren't as urban as San Francisco, so if people are not trying to be necessarily around a lot of people, and they're going to go to these counties that have bigger, more rural areas, we're competing within our own state for business. And I think as when you asked Corey about when it opens, how it'll be different, I think travel will always be different. I think this is, you know, if it's not COVID, there's probably going to be something down the road that's going to be similar. I think one of the biggest advantages that everybody will get out of this is really more of a respect for health and a respect for health practices that keep everybody healthy. I think some of the things that are being implemented for COVID will also help with other health issues that may be passed on in similar fashions. And I think we're all going to be changing how we work and where we stay because of that. So I think that's a learning thing. And some of the other things that are coming along with the people refusing to do things or saying they won't do it, I think that's going to be a real social issue for us as a country, especially with where people are not respecting the rules that are being put forward for them.
Yeah, you're talking about face masks probably, because I know with temperature checks, testing, and face masks, I know they're evaluating that at the federal level, but nothing yet, because as you said, it's a patchwork of so many different rules and regulations depending upon where you're traveling to.
You know, I actually really agree that especially after this pandemic, like I agree with Kevin that is, you know, we need to learning the change and more be adaptive, right? And it what it is. So we just need to accept our new normal now. So, so what kind of tips would you able to give the audience when they prepare for the travel?
Well, for me, I would just say, you know, again, read the rules depending upon where you're going, and just be prepared. You as a traveler need to feel comfortable traveling, you know, and so in this new world order, as you just stated, you know, taking shoes off before going through security, we didn't do that prior to 9/11, right? Now we have to follow these new rules. And you know, if you need to bring your own wipes to wipe down your space, even though you know that we've done all we can do to keep your space safe, for your own self assurance, you should feel comfortable doing that. And also, really just talking to our crew members, our pilots, making sure that you feel comfortable with what they've done and how they're approaching this as well. I think it's important for, you know, you to feel like, okay, this is going to be okay for myself and my family, that I can feel assured that I'm safe in traveling. And again, I really
Frozen?
I think Melinda's having some connection issues, but maybe Kevin, you can share like some point of views from the hotel industry.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I mentioned, and Melinda was saying, it's definitely changing. And my tips would be, you know, you have to make a personal decision of what you feel comfortable doing. And I think knowing the facts, checking with your hotel company that you're going to, finding out what they're doing. They're all posting it and putting it up on what their actual uh, protocols are, educating yourself, and then doing what you think, what you feel comfortable with. And I think it's like anything, there's going to be early adopters that are going to travel first. I mean, when I traveled last weekend, I had friends saying they wouldn't travel. They're like, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do it. And that's going to be a decision that people have to make. And you do that in an informed way. My tips are whatever you would travel with normally, if you can, travel when you stay in a hotel as well. So if you're bringing sanitizing wipes or liquids with you, just make sure that you're obviously doing that in a way that makes sense for you, but then also with the hotel that you're doing it. One of the questions that's come up is how often people are coming in and out of your hotel room. So hotels have a plan where you can opt out of daily cleaning. And we believe from everything we've read that the less interaction in and out of a room, the safer it is for both employees and for our visitors. And so as you go to a hotel, they'll probably be already letting you know. There probably are programs where you can decide not to have your room serviced, or maybe a limited service. So if you decide, I only want the towels today, they will do that and leave them, bring them to the room, but maybe not into the room. And I think those are the tips. Know what you want, know what you expect, and then what makes you feel the most comfortable. And I think then you're going to have a really great experience when you stay in the hotel.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I just want to have a question add on. Like you mentioned that this is more expected expense for the hotel because of the hygiene and
Yeah.
cleaning measurements. So what do you think about how the hotel industry, of course, this airline industry to balance this? Is this going to add all the cost to the consumer or what will it be look like?
Hard to tell, and it's a great question. I think when you look at, we're in a really interesting place. We're in a place where we're trying to get people to come back, we're at a place where we don't have the occupancies or even the capacities on airlines. And usually what that happens, and when you're trying to attract, is when you start getting into more prices that may be lower. As an industry, a hotel council, we can't talk price. It's an antitrust violation, so I can't talk with my members about what they're charging or not charging. But just intuitively, if you have a situation where there's much more supply and less demand, that prices are probably going to come down because of that. But the reality is it's going to cost hotels more for all the reasons we've been talking about to do business at the same time when we don't have the demand. So that's actually a really not a great situation to be in. You have the open capacity, you have a higher expense rate, and you have a lower demand. So I would say you're probably going to see more situations where prices wouldn't be higher, at least in the short term, just out of basic economic principles. But it will have to change, because the other thing is allowing businesses to stay in business and be sustainable. So if a business is operating at a deficit and not able to do it profitably, there's not an incentive for the business to stay open. And so it's a really tough situation right now. It's hard for many industries. Hotels, restaurants, airlines, all of them are asking themselves the same questions.
Yeah, totally. So, after this pandemic, we kind of have a new term is called bubble. Is like we have social bubble, or the new term is called bubble travel now, which means that is like set up a travel zone to travel. People don't need to have the quarantine requirement. So what do you see for this bubble travel? Will it be really realistic in the society?
Yeah, can you give me a little bit more on the question? So when you're
Okay.
saying,
Yeah, so like now we have a new term is called bubble travel. So usually it's set up for 2 city or 3 city, that have the agreement that like the citizen or resident travel between this city, they don't need to have quarantine requirement.
Yeah.
So what do you think about it? And what do
Well,
you see? Would you think that is going to happen more
yeah.
often now?
Well, it's hard to tell. I think one thing that could happen is when people are traveling into a particular state, let's say we'll use California, where they may make a decision in the past to go to California, Nevada, and then make 2 or 3 stops, because different states, if they do have different requirements, they may decide to stay within that bubble within where they are, because it's one understanding of what they're going to need and what they're going to do. So I think it's probably early to tell how it would truly play out, but I would think people's travel patterns will be altered based on what the requirements are or their comfortability with the requirements of where they're going. So if they're traveling to a state that's clearly not as focused on the health side of it, or a city that either has higher numbers or has been in the news for whatever reason, not supporting as much on the health side, that could affect where they're going to go as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see. It'll be a good case study, but how it affects from a bubble point of view, I think we're going to have to wait and see.
Great. Okay. So so anything you want to additional share with our audience, Kevin?
Sure. I think what I said earlier too, people will come back and travel more. People will come. It's going to be a slow process, unfortunately. And I think as we start to see more people making it, and they see people traveling, and they see others that are making the decision to do it, they'll start to come back. I think it's important that people understand what their comfortability is, understand what they're looking for as they travel, and when they make their decisions to travel, understand that hotels have been and will continue to make cleanliness and safety their #1 priority. And that's something that you're going to hear more from hotels. You're going to hear people talking about it, but we want to make sure that guests know we are here as an industry. We are spending the time and energy up front so that when we are able to open for tourism, that we're doing it in the absolute safest way for our visitors.
All right, thank you for sharing, Kevin. I see Melinda's back.
Oh,
So
Melinda.
let's go back to the question and to see if Melinda has anything to add on. Hi, Melinda, can you hear us?
So she's still, it looks like it's still frozen.
So I have one question in the Q&A.
Okay.
Hey,
So
Corey, I'm back.
oh, you're back now. Okay,
Yeah, I'm
great.
sorry about that.
We're glad to have you back.
Yes.
I'm here.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Oh, now she's frozen.
Oh, my goodness.
Mhm.
This Zoom.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Kevin. I'm going to try to get on the computer again.
Okay.
So actually, I have a question. So,
Okay.
Kevin, what will it take for the convention business back to normal? Especially San Francisco, really based on, the convention.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot from the sense that when everything about COVID has been about social distancing, and conventions are about bringing people together and big groups of people together. I mean, when you have a convention that might have 70, 80,000 people visiting a city, that's exciting for a lot of reasons because it brings business to not only the hotels, but the cities, the restaurants around them. I think for conventions to come back, there's going to have to be an overall comfortability with traveling, businesses looking to allow people to travel to conventions, people having their own personal ability and want to attend conferences as well. And also the protocols of what's going to happen. So if you're looking now at a 6-foot distancing from social distancing, and you talk about going to a conference where you have thousands of people in one room, that's going to change the dynamic of what that room is like. And so that's something that there's a lot of work that's been done at both the state and the local level to how do we do that in a way that fits the guidelines that are going to have people be there. I think it's safe to say conventions will be different than what they were before and how they were handled before. And I think all of that's going to fall into what our norms are becoming with just in every other aspect. So conventions have a food and beverage portion of it. So the rules that are related to food and beverage are going to have to play into it. I think there's also the situation where more and more companies are doing things over webinars. And so you're probably going to see hybrid situations where conferences have both in-person meetings as well as people coming in and being able to come in from a web point of view as well. I think necessity is going to play out with what's going to have to change for conferences. We want our conferences back. We really need to bring conferences back. I mentioned earlier, it's about 1/3 of our business here in San Francisco. And from a hotel point of view, it's absolutely critical that we get them back. And right now, we're looking at end of the year into next year before we would start to see conventions coming back.
All right, let's just hope for the best, because I would really love to see the city be filling of people again, to be honest. But that's all these formal questions. I do have a questions to Kevin and Melinda. I'm just interested to know because like right now we're all working from home, and it's like business for the hotel. So what do you do? What do you do in your leisure time? And also at the hotel industry, they're planning on doing the marketing for the upcoming opening in August, hopefully. Guys, anything in the meanwhile?
Yeah, I can go first, Melinda. I don't know if you. I think for us, the hotels, absolutely. Our hotels, we want to be open. We're looking at. I talked about that more of a drive customer coming in. Coming from within the state. The market, we work closely with SF Travel. Both Melinda and I are on their board of directors, and their campaigns and their work that, when we're open for our hotels, we definitely will be getting them back as well. And I think you asked personally what I do with my free time. I plan to travel. So this is not only am I working from home, which is not my favorite thing to do. I'm a person who likes to travel, as much as I can. So normally what I would be doing is planning travel, and now I'm in a situation where I'm planning travel that I'm having to change, or people are asking me to change it. So for me, that is my passion, and that is what I care about, and that to me it intersects so closely with what my work is as well. So.
Yes, I apologize, Corey. I'm now back officially. The technical difficulties. So, what was your last question?
Oh, hi, Melinda. Welcome back. I was just asking, what are you guys doing this whole time? Because I know a lot of us been working from home. Like, how do you spend your time?
Oh, yes, we definitely have been working from home, and the I take long hikes, try to walk 5 miles a day every day, and just be on top of everything that's happening in the industry, because it's our function is more critical than ever, both Kevin and my jobs, because there's so many changes in the industries we're in, and we just have to be on top of it and really represent our industries as we move forward. The corporate and government affairs space is very crowded right now, and there's a lot happening. But I think for everybody during COVID, we need to have our own peace of mind. We need to do things that make us happy. We need to be able to spend time with friends and reconnect. And I think all those things are so important as we move the dial forward and get through to the other side. I remain very optimistic that we're going to get to the other side in a very positive way.
Yeah, and I remember we were just having conversation about our favorite destination before this webinar, and then we all agreed that we really want to travel. I mean, I really want to go back to Hong Kong to see my friends and family. So let's just wait for it to see when it's safe to travel, so we can plan for that. Yeah, and Chloe,
Yeah. I want to just comment on that for United, and I know Cathay and other airlines that fly to Hong Kong. We are restarting our Hong Kong service on July 6th, and then going on to Singapore, and then we're starting our China service to Shanghai, SFO to Shanghai, starting on July 8th. So we're starting to come back slowly but surely, and we hope to be able to open more of Asia and more of Europe as the days go on. It again depends on the travel restrictions, but at the same time, if we feel the demand is there and there's a market there, we'll continue to gradually open up to the world again.
That's good to hear. Thank you, Melinda. And does Chloe or Kevin, you have anything to add on?
No, but I actually, after this webinar, I feel like more safe to travel now, because I feel like I get more information and understand more. So, but definitely I'm looking forward to travel to Hong Kong soon. So back to you, Yanni.
All right.
I would say, Yanni, thank you too. And I think all of us want to get back to traveling. All of us are in the industry, but I think for everybody, it will happen. It's just when and how soon it can happen. And
yeah, it takes time. It takes time for everything just to go back to normal. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for your sharings today, panelists. I think it's a very fun conversation between us, and I hope our audience will get some useful tips from this webinar today. And for the audience, if you do enjoy our webinar series, and you would like to learn more about how to support our association in organizing, the similar webinars in the future, you can visit our website, www.hkanc.com. So you will find all the member benefits if you want to, show your support to our association. And also, after the webinar today, you'll be asked to participate in a 2-minute short survey. I appreciate that if you could take the time to share your feedback with us, so we can make it better the next time.